started, kindly silence your cell phones so we do not disturb today's program. And let's get started, like we always do at DEC, with the pledge and a prayer. So I would ask you to stand and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by Brother Gary Wegner, Executive Director of Capuchin Soup Kitchen. Brother Wegner.
God of saints and sinners, thank you for this autumn season of the year. Thank you for the gifts we have received. Thank you for the gifts we can share. Thank you for our ancestors, our mentors, and those who have gone before us, who have made us who we are. We pray that we may one day be counted among the hallowed ones. We pray this day for food in a world where many walk in hunger, for faith in a world where many walk in fear, for friends in a world where many walk alone. We give you thanks, O Lord. We pray that by your grace the words of the old hymn might ring true in our great city of Detroit. O beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. God of the harvest time, bless this meal to be placed before us. Bless the workers in the kitchen. Bless the servers at our tables. Bless us all today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Wegner. You may all be seated, and yes, there is a meal coming after the program. Don't you worry. So I want to take a moment to welcome some special guests that are with us today. We are extremely honored that civil rights icon, Ambassador Andrew Young, and his wife, Carolyn, have traveled from Atlanta to join us today and at a Cornerstone Schools event this morning. So please say hello to Ambassador and Mrs. Young. Thank you. And it's always a treat to have former CEO of the DEC, Beth Chappell, with us. Say hello to Beth. And we also always love having high school and college students at each of our DEC meetings. They're here courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors, and they had a private session already this morning with Ed Bastian. So let me just take a minute and tell you who is with us. We've got students from Cornerstone Schools, compliments of Delta Airlines. Thank you, Ed and Nick DeMarco. Schoolcraft College students, compliments of Adam Robbins and Accenture. Scott Jackman, thank you. And Birmingham Groves Falcons, thanks to Mark Mendola and PwC. So folks, how about joining me in a round of applause to welcome the students and thank the sponsors. Two things on your table, the season lineup. You're going to see a mix of in-person and virtual. Our next virtual is the 9th of November. It's our very popular, relatively new Money Talk series where we hear from a different investment executive each month about something near and dear to your heart, your money. So we hope you can join us for that. It's 30 minutes. It's a really nice session. Our next in-person meeting will be November 18th. We'll be joined by CEO of DTE Energy, Jerry Norcia. So we hope you can make plans to join us at both of those. Be on the lookout always for more meeting announcements. Also on your table, just please take a minute to check out the sponsor brochure. We would not be here if it wasn't for the generosity of those folks. So thank you if you're a sponsor of the DEC. And I especially want to welcome Delta Airlines as our newest DEC sponsor. Thank you, Ed and team, for your investment in the DEC. I love to talk about this. It's the DEC Date in History. We've got this incredible history of speakers that tell the history of our country. And Ed, you are, October 29th is a popular date in DEC's 87-year history. You, sir, are now joining a distinguished list of 16 others who spoke, the first one in 1940, who graced our podium on this day, October 29th. And they include an energy secretary, Michigan's Governor Milliken, MSU President DiBiagio, Mayors Coleman Young and Alfred Cobo, separate dates, of course, but wouldn't that have been interesting to see them on the same stage? And Cardinal Adam Maida, and it was 30 years ago today, and Clark Durant was in the audience of that DEC meeting then, as he is today. And we understand that DEC meeting led you to create the amazing Cornerstone Schools, and I know you had a big announcement this morning with Ambassador Young, so congratulations to you, Clark. Thank you. And today we're pleased to add you as our 17th speaker on this day in DEC history. It's your third visit, so congratulations again, and thanks for being with us. If you are a tweeter, we want you to tweet today using @DebtEconomic Club. And one of the more popular elements of our DEC meetings is our Q&A session at the end of the program. We want to hear from you. Instructions are on your table. You can use your smartphone to submit a question, and those questions are going to make their way to our presiding officer, who I'm about to put to work. Mark Mendola is the Vice Chair of PwC and U.S. Managing Partner. We're thrilled he's with us today, usually in New York or elsewhere in the world. He's a board member and treasurer and great friend of the DEC and to me personally. He gave an award-winning performance at yesterday's DEC board meeting, I want you to know. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Mendola to the stage.
Thank you, my friend. Accounting and the treasury report is always the most exciting topics. There's no question about that. So thanks, Steve, and good afternoon, DEC members and guests. I just want to echo, it is great to see everybody in person, and thank you for joining us today. As Steve just highlighted, I did want to just, before I introduce Ed, I just wanted to say what a true honor it is to have Ambassador Young with us today. So again, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. Thank you. So on with the program. Ed Bastian, of course, is the CEO of Delta Airlines and has a strong presence here in Detroit. I know myself, I'm there every other day, I swear, in the Detroit airport. And what gives me great pride about this city, one of the many things, is just how wonderful our airport really is. When people fly in from all over the world, one of the first things they say is, that airport is phenomenal. So Ed and the team, thank you so much. It's just fantastic, and and hopefully Detroit represents it well. In February, Delta was named the world's most admired airline by Fortune magazine for the 10th time. So that's something to be really proud of. And that's no small feat given the recent pandemic that we all face. So congratulations to Ed and to the Delta and the family. So we appreciate that. We were honored to host Ed in person in 2017, and again by Zoom, if I remember right, Steve, this past May. So Ed is a 20-year veteran of Delta Airlines and was named CEO in 2016. Prior to Delta, Ed had very successful stints both at Frito-Lay and Pepsi, and he began his career at PwC as an audit partner in New York. So great stock. It's not a bad firm, I might add. Ed earned his bachelor's degree in business administration from St. Bonaventure. And in my role as the treasurer of DEC and board member, I just want to echo, Ed, we're so thankful for you and for Delta's commitment and generous support to the club. It means a lot, so thank you very, very much. We're very pleased that you traveled away from Atlanta today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please give a warm applause, a DEC welcome to Mr. Ed Bastian. Thank you.
Have a seat, Ed. Good to see you again.
Well, it's so good to be here. First of all, it's good to be seen. And it's really great to see a couple hundred people live. It's been a long time. It feels a lot longer than just even the 4 years since I was on the stage with you, which was wonderful. And I really appreciate all of the support we've received from the community, particularly here in Detroit, as we work through the toughest challenge of our industry's history with the pandemic. And while we are not done yet, we are making great strides. but we wouldn't be making the strides if it wasn't for your support and your confidence in Delta and choosing Delta as the world's best airline to travel on. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for what you do for us.
Great. So, yeah. We're excited to get your thoughts on the future of travel, but before we do that, your board called me and they wanted me to ask you, you traveled from Atlanta to Detroit. What airline did you fly?
I flew world's best airline, Delta Airlines.
Good. And I love to ask this question, not a board question. Did you get noticed when the welcome video came on?
I did. Even with masks, you get noticed. I took some pictures, and I know we're all trying to social distance, but that's starting to collapse quickly.
Good. Ed, you were kind enough to join us, as Mark mentioned, last May via Zoom, and you talked about the huge orders you had for summer travel. And tell us, how was your summer personally, and how was Delta's summer?
Well, my summer was busy. I wasn't traveling because I was working to make sure we all could manage the enormous pent-up demand that we had seen. We saw it here in Detroit. We saw it throughout our country. It was probably right around Memorial Day, probably pretty close to the time that we spoke, that once the CDC came out and said, okay, social distancing is not as important. You can start to take your masks off and you can start to travel again. Our phone lines lit up. I apologize. I know many of you have probably been on really long calls waiting to talk to our people and dealing with all that demand. We've got a lot of people we're hiring and getting those wait line times way down. But they came back fast. And we went from, in the month of May, to having our load factors still be somewhere between 40 and 50% full on the planes, to the month of July, we were almost 90% full. And it was as dramatic as it felt. And we were thrilled. And it's been hard. You just don't turn on the largest airline overnight with bringing all the volume all at once. But we're thrilled to see it, and we are doing a great job. We're hiring a lot of people. We've already hired 8,000 people this year just to be able to get everybody in position, because we know the holidays are also going to be a busy travel time coming up. And we've got international opening here soon as well.
Good, we're going to talk about that. So let's start the future of travel. I want to start big picture. The aviation industry here in the U.S. has started to rebound. How is the industry different today than it was pre-pandemic?
Well, it's still recovering. So I don't think you can declare how it's going to be different on the other side of the pandemic. But what I can tell you, the things that Delta's doing that's very, very different, is that our focus on health and cleanliness and taking great care of everyone has gone up. It was always high, but it's gone up to a totally different level from any point we'd ever seen. And while I know everyone was focused on wipes and sanitation of surfaces, through it, not just in the airline space, just any public space, you notice we're still giving out the wipes. And that's a sign to our people as well as to our customers about how clean we want to make sure that experience is. I've told our team, when you step foot on a Delta airplane, I wanted for our customers to feel it's coming factory fresh, right out of a Boeing plant in Seattle, for example. And they're doing exactly that. Masking is here, and I think it'll stay here for a bit of time. I don't know when masking will eventually start to be eliminated. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, though. And people are I think they're just enjoying getting back out again. It's, we've really missed it, and it's just great for us, and it's our purpose to connect the world and being the conduit through which we bring the world back together after the most harrowing time of our life.
We talked about leisure travel and certainly what happened this summer. Many of the people in this room are really interested in your thoughts on business travel. So what does that look like going forward?
Well, that is a $64 million question, and it seems like everyone's got their own opinion. And by the way, it's not just for business travel, it's for work, whether people are coming to the office or not, or hybrid, or, there's a lot that the pandemic has caused us to rethink about how we work, how we travel, where we go, and when we go. For business travel, I think it's going to largely come back. In fact, right now, we're already 50% back from where we were in 2019. So it's, and I know a lot of businesses aren't even open yet, and there's a lot of business travelers that aren't quite yet on the road. We're already 50% back. And I think by, I'll come back next year and I'll give you a better assessment. But I think by the end of next year, we'll be somewhere between 80 to 90% of the way back in terms of where we were. But also, there's going to be new forms of travel that's going to supplement that lost, 10 to 20%. I love how everyone has deemed video technology, and apologies to any technology people in the room. Technology doesn't replace being together. It's just, when I talked to you in May on that Zoom call, it wasn't the same as being with you in person. And that connection that video technology provided was a stopgap. But it's also something that enables mobility. People think that Zoom and video technologies kind of keep people limited to their home or their office, and it actually allows you to take your office with you wherever you go. And you can actually be on the road, you can be traveling, you can be working in a different location than your workspace and still stay connected to what's going on in your life. It doesn't limit you, it actually enhances mobility. And I think as people start to realize and couple and complement and bring that alongside travel, I think that's going to be a big opportunity. I think the hybrid experiments, Mark, PwC, I saw announced that the staff doesn't have to come back to the office ever, from what I understand. It's great to work for PwC. You work from home, I guess, forever. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea, but I won't get into your business decisions. But you're going to have people, they're still going to need to come back to their office at some point, and they're going to have to travel when they get back. They're going to be living in different places from where they work. There's a new form of travel. And one of the other things that I think is powerful, and those that are consultancies or accounting firms, people that are in the business development world, everyone has met a lot of people over the last 18 months, connected online, new faces as you've reached out on a much wider scale. We've got much bigger Rolodexes now than ever before, but do we really know those people? We don't. The relationships are pretty shallow. And most people are going to want to go travel to meet those people because you don't get deals done. You don't really develop relationships. So actually video technology enhances your connection to others as a contact point. I've had a lot of consultants come up and say that, I've developed 5x the number of references and people I've met over the last 18 months than I would have traditionally. I want to go meet them all, and I want to be with them. So I think it's going to come back more than 100%, but it's going to come back differently.
Amen to face-to-face relationships, no question. I want to dig a little bit deeper. You told us that November 8th, the travel ban is lifted and international folks can start coming in if they're vaccinated. So a lot of these folks here will travel internationally for business. What is the outlook for international travel, but both business and leisure?
I think international travel, and let's start with Europe, because that's our biggest theater that we operate in. I think the summer of 22, next summer, is going to look very much like the summer we just saw in the US of 21, because people are just ready to go. And when the White House in late September announced that international guests could finally come back into the US if they're vaccinated, we saw our international bookings jump tenfold from where they were just the prior week. It's just been, and so people are ready to go. And it's not just business, it's families that haven't seen each other for a couple years. It's relations, it's trips put off. And it also was a signal to US travelers, it's actually okay to go abroad if you're going to bring international guests in. And so we saw also the US international point of sale jump at the same time. It's going to be a busy winter. The holidays are going to be busy. So you're going to have that first push of demand. And then by the spring, summer, I think you're going to see a lot of European guests coming to our country. I was mentioning with Steve, I was in London a few weeks ago, and it was probably my most memorable international trip I ever took, because when you can't go somewhere for an extended period of time, you actually think about that a lot, and just the ability to get out of the country and to get with people and friends and reconnect. It was wonderful, and I was only there for a few days, but it was a celebratory moment for me, not just because it's my business, just me personally, because our world needs to be together. I mean, this isolation that has been necessary because of the pandemic has caused so many challenges in whether it's your emotional well-being, your jobs, your family. I mean, we need to get back together in person, and applaud you to getting this group back together in person. but eventually the world needs to get back together, and that's when we're going to be able to start to work together and collaborate as one. Because right now there's a lot of talking by people in not just our country, in our world.
Ed, Delta made news recently when you announced the $200 monthly surcharge for unvaccinated employees. So talk about that decision and the reactions.
Sure. So we want to get our people vaccinated, clearly. We want to encourage and support. We brought vaccines to our workplaces. In Atlanta, on our campus in Georgia, we were the home of the largest vaccination site in the state of Georgia. We vaccinated 150,000 people. We hosted that with the state of Georgia. So we are all in on getting people tested, vaccinated. Yet at the same time, and by the way, the 8,000 new people that have joined Delta, they had to be vaccinated to come work for Delta. But if you ask the question, am I going to force someone to lose a 25, 30, 40-year career because they have some deep-seated concern about the vaccine, or if there's some, I have a hard time doing that. I have a hard time. These mandates, unfortunately, are really blunt instruments, and caused a lot of, again, another round of politicization of what should not be political. You know, we should be getting people, and actually, when you implement those mandates and people are actually starting to lose their jobs in certain companies, that's not helping them get vaccinated. Those people aren't, I'm sure they're not running to the doctor to get vaccinated if they lose their job. So it's still not fulfilling the purpose. So we tried to take a different approach at our company, and we came out before the president with our plan, and I think that's why the president has come out as forcefully with the mandates, because they were calling around to a lot of companies, and they were realizing companies didn't have really a plan other than encouragement. And so, and the vaccination rate, we know this summer stalled out in our country. So our plan was, if you're not vaccinated, you have a choice. You can either get vaccinated, or you're going to pay an insurance charge, which was pretty hefty, and it starts next month of $200 a month, because the companies, our company at least, covers all the cost of COVID. The average cost of a COVID hospitalization to Delta is $50,000. And we've spent an enormous amount of money this last year and a half in very sad situations of that. And if you don't want to be vaccinated, I get it. If you've got a religious or medical reason you're not vaccinated, we're offering exemptions to that surcharge. But if you're just out there and you say, I'm not worried about COVID, I've had it, and which was probably 20%, I'd say, of the workforce collectively, we had to kind of take that option off the table. That if you really feel strongly about it, are willing to pay for the insurance costs, and what we've seen is most people aren't. So they've jumped up. So our vaccination rate jumped when we announced that from 75% to today we're over 90% vaccinated. And as it starts to kick in the next few weeks, that number will easily go north of 95%. So it proves you can do this differently. You don't have to come in with a government mandate to get people vaccinated. You can work with your people. And people, and I've heard from a lot of our employees, they appreciate the opportunity to have their voices heard. If there's some reason they just can't feel comfortable taking it quite yet, they need more time, whatever the reason be.
Well, very innovative, so congrats on that decision. I want to shift gears and talk DE&I. You and Delta are very intentional and committed to DE&I, and you created the Delta's Close the Gap program. Tell us what that is, and where are you in that DE&I journey?
So I think all companies in corporate America have used this window of time from the pandemic to be silenced, to watch, to think about purpose, to think about how we're going to come out of this as a better company and a better America, and the focus on diversity, inclusion across the board, not just in our business, is something I'm pleased to see. One thing that we've done at Delta is we've said, where do we have the gaps? 22% of our employee base is African American, yet only 7% of our leadership, the top officers of the company, are African American. That doesn't reflect the equity and the diversity that we want. We want that diversity to reflect from the top to the bottom in all ways around it. We realize it takes some time, but by publishing the numbers and being public in terms of our commitment, it's encouraging not just others to follow us, but internally, and we're giving reports on that as we go. D&I is not just about race, though it's important. It's probably where we have the biggest gap at the moment. It's around gender. ethnicity, and so we're tracking all the elements. We ultimately want the face of our leadership, the face of our company to reflect our customer base. And when I look around the room, this is a pretty good representation of many of our customers, a lot of women, a lot of African Americans, a lot of different ethnicities in the room. That's what Delta should reflect. And we're not going to stop until we get there. So that's what that's about.
Good. I've got one last question, Mark, and we're going to bring you up for audience questions in a moment. But environment and climate change are important topics for Delta. Where are you in your commitment to carbon neutrality?
Well, we are in an industry, and I know here in Detroit, the automotive industry is, and Mary and the General Motors, I was just with Mary a couple of weeks ago, are doing a tremendous amount of job around electrification and clean energy and the future, and I applaud the automotive industry for that. Our industry is classified as a hard to decarbonize sector because 98% of our footprint is jet fuel, and we don't have battery powers that we can, or an electrification grid that we can go for our planes. It just doesn't work at scale for aircraft. And so we have to develop new sources of energy, clean energy, starting with sustainable aviation fuels. We have a commitment to get to 10% of our fuel supply as sustainable aviation fuel by the end of the decade, and that's clean energy, that's biodiesel, that's a number of new forms of energy. 10% does not sound ambitious, but if I was to tell you if Delta went out and bought the entire world supply of sustainable aviation fuels today, world supply for a year, that'd be enough for us to fuel our planes for one day.
Wow.
And so the supply doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist is because the cost base is 4 times the level per gallon of a sustainable aviation fuel as compared to jet fuel, which is high today given where energy prices have climbed. So we're working with Washington. I was in DC this week working and trying to make sure that we can bring the energy companies together with the airlines to create and promote investment in sustainable aviation fuels. It's in some of the reconciliation bills that the House and the Senate are bandying about right now. We need those grants, we need that. Just as there's a tremendous amount of investment that the government is promoting in terms of electrification of the grid, we need that same energy for the electrification of the sky. It won't be through electric grids, but it'll be through sustainable aviation fuels and other products. Eventually, it's gonna have to be hydrogen, is what I think. And hydrogen as a source of propulsion. And clean hydrogen, blue hydrogen, there's green hydrogen, there's all sorts of, but that's probably 20 years from now. We're doing a lot of other things, by the way, where every plane we bring in is 25% more fuel efficient than the planes we retired. At Delta, we retired during the pandemic 200 aircraft. So we already have improved our seat, per passenger energy consumption by 5% just in the last 18 to 24 months. But we have still a lot of work to do.
You ready for some tough questions from the audience?
Absolutely.
All right,
Take it
we've
away,
got
Mark.
a lot of questions, and thank you for that. So I don't typically call someone out, but I have to acknowledge Beth Chappell just sent in a question, and she wanted to know, when are we getting hot meals back on domestic flights? So
They're coming. They're in the process.
it's very important.
We will have, probably by the beginning of the year, we'll have all of our hot service back. And we already have a lot of it back on our domestic flights. During the pandemic, we obviously shut down all of them. In fact, we took the opportunity to massively improve the catering experience. And we have a great caterer here in Detroit that we launched. It's a European company called Doe & Co. And we have a new Sky Club we're opening in December also at the airport, an additional one. I was there yesterday and they serve, it's phenomenal. And so we had to go in and bring new caterers in, take control of our kitchens. We knew catering historically was probably the one spot of the air travel journey that still wasn't up to snuff. So even we don't even want to talk about bringing back. We want to bring back new and fresh and more sustainable. And we're making good progress there. I think you're going to be really impressed with what you're seeing. It's already starting to come out on our planes. Doe & Co. as a local caterer.
All right, thanks, Ed. Is that good, Beth? Are you happy? Yeah, you're welcome. So, Ed, what new amenities do you see coming along for passengers in the future to make their trips even more pleasant?
One of the things I've been very vocal on for some time is that we have to have a much better Wi-Fi experience in the air for our customers. It needs to have the same caliber of connection in the air as on the ground. And I always joke, we're in the air, we're closer to the darn satellites. It should be faster, right? Of course, when you're in your living room, you're not traveling at 500 miles an hour, so it gets a little more complicated. And when we do that, we've got to make it free. Yeah. We've got to make it free. And we're on that. We've changed out our Wi-Fi provider. Go-Go is kind of no-go. It has been, unfortunately, for quite some time. And we've moved to Viasat. And we now already have, by the end of this year, we'll have about a third of our U.S. domestic planes in the new Wi-Fi configuration. We still charge. It's a lower charge. It's about $5 a session, cheaper than the old Go-Go pricing was. And the quality is phenomenal in terms of any of you, maybe if some of you have a chance to experience that. And you can download, you have no limitation how many people on board are using it at the same time. And that connectivity is a big, big deal. And when we get the free, I think it's going to be another big improvement, including better entertainment on board as well on the screens. Another thing that we've done a lot is invest in the airports. You've got a wonderful airport here in Detroit. We are continuing to make improvements. We don't run sitting on our great lead here. But LaGuardia has got a new airport opening in the spring of next year. And I know Detroit, LaGuardia is a very busy business travel market. Opening, we're going to be cutting the ribbon in April to the new LaGuardia airport, and it's going to blow your socks off, I assure you. LAX, we got a new airport opening in the spring of next year also. We've opened up a new airport in Salt Lake City, and we're going to continue to grow. So the airport experience, we retired 200 of our oldest planes. Any plane scheduled to retire in the next 5 years has basically been retired at this stage. We're already advancing our future. And our team, the other thing I'm excited about is that we had about 20% of our employees take early retirement because of the pandemic, all voluntary, and we wanted to encourage people continue to move up the scale. And so we have so many new leaders at Delta now and younger leaders, and it's not just leaders, it's frontline employees, pilots, flight attendants, gate agents that have better bidding capability because all the senior people now have retired. And so you're seeing a very fresh look to the company. It's very, very cool to see.
Thanks, Ed. You kind of touched on it. A lot of organizations are very proud of they talk or they try to define their culture. How would you describe or define the culture within Delta?
Our culture is one of service, serving people. That's my job, is taking care of our people. The 75,000 Delta Strong, that's my #1 job, is to support them, to be with them, to make sure they have every tool and technology and capability I can manage to provide them. That's why I think about and spend most of my time every single day looking at. And their job is to serve all of you as our customers. And it goes back to our founder's statement. It's, if you take good care of your employees will take good care of your customers. There's been a lot of discussion over the last number of years about stakeholder management. The Business Roundtable's come out with stakeholders. Why do companies exist? It's not just for profit. It's for that was the foundation of our company. So it's in our DNA. And so when you look at our service scores, and I'm proud to say through the pandemic, our service scores were off the charts. And we blocked the middle seats for our people. That's an act of service. Yep. Keeping people safe during a pandemic. We're the only airline that did that. We did that through the entire pandemic. And people remember that. That's an act of service. And by the way, it was an act of service to our people. I did it because I knew our people weren't comfortable serving full planes of customers, just as our customers weren't comfortable sitting on a full plane of customers, the only airline to do that. So, even how we've managed the pandemic, we're coming through this a lot stronger in that identification of purpose.
Thanks, Ted. Ed was gracious enough to spend some time with some students today. This is a student question. What is something that you regret not doing earlier on in your career?
Oh, I've got too many regrets. Probably I can't share. Maybe it's me. I always just look forward. I learn from mistakes. I've made as many mistakes as anyone in this room have. I don't reflect on it, and I don't live a life of regrets. I live a life of opportunities, and I've failed. I've tried. I've done different things, and some of the things work. But you learn. When something doesn't go right, or if you weren't fast enough to something, you learn from that, and those are positives. Those aren't negatives. And learning to live a life of, as they say, failing forward and using your learnings. Through all challenges, it makes you a better person, makes you a better business executive, and makes you a better citizen.
One other question on, there's been a lot of talk about pilot shortage in the industry. Clearly, that's impacted one of the other major airlines, far more significant than Delta. Excuse me. Is that an issue for Delta? And how do you keep your pipeline of pilot talent?
It's not an issue for Delta. Delta is the top of the charts for pilots. We've got the best work rules. I believe we've got the best environment, the best company to work for as a pilot, as well as any other employee group in the company. And we have lines of people that sign up when and we're hiring pilots right now. So if any of you have friends or family that are pilots, we're hiring close to 200 a month right now. And we're getting great reception and great response. The issue is going to be at the lower levels of the industry, whether it's the regional jets that don't pay as well, some of the discounters that don't pay as well. They're losing people to the bigger airlines. And so there is a pipeline issue that's emerging. It's not something that's significant at the moment, but coming, I'd say, over the next 3 to 5, 7 years, it's a great profession for people to get into. The military isn't producing as many pilots as they used to. It used to be 75% of our pilots came from the military. It hasn't, the military's just not producing as many, and as a result, we're having to go through civilian programs more than ever.
Mark got emotional on that question. Do you want to be a pilot?
No, I wasn't a Civil Air Patrol in junior high, but I think I lost my certification. Steve, time check. So remind me where we are on time.
You got time for one more question before we
do the rapid
lightning
fire?
round?
Is that right?
that's
Okay. So one of the things we all wanted to ask, and this came up, can you describe Detroit? Now, you're here a fair bit. You love our airport. How would you describe Detroit?
Well, Detroit for Delta is really important. This is our second largest hub in the world that we operate in. Today we're back to about 80% of our schedule. By next summer, hopefully we'll be back to close to 90 to 95%, if not more, of our domestic schedule. Operating well over 400 flights a day. It's a fascinating. Obviously the city is continuing to make a lot of progress. Great energy out of the automotive sector and a lot of new businesses, and staying in this hotel here last night and seeing the downtown, the continued improvement of downtown is really exciting. When we think about Detroit, though, we think broader. We think about it's a great place to come and go from in terms of connecting, not just local traffic. And we look at Detroit as in competition with Chicago. And if you're a traveler that's sitting on the East Coast and needs to get to the West Coast and there's not a direct, you got to figure out what airport you're going to navigate. There ain't a better airport than Detroit to navigate. And more travelers are going to Detroit to connect than they are to come to Detroit, though the local travel is starting to pick up again. And keeping that efficiency, the streamlined flow that the airport has is really exciting for us to be part of this city.
Thanks, Ed. So I've got a couple rapid fire lightning round questions. First one is, if you're president of the United States, what would you tackle? What would be the one issue that you would address right away?
Are we allowing no comment?
I would say, why am I here? That will never happen. Listen, the number one issue I see facing our country and our world is the divisiveness that we have. And we can't have conversation, it seems, with people from a different point of view increasingly. And we need to stop all of the divisiveness, and we need to put our differences on the table and don't let our differences define us. Let's have our differences make us stronger.
Great answer, thank you. Now, as a reminder, you're here in Detroit, so I'm going to ask you, what was your first car?
My first car was a GM product. Okay. It was an Oldsmobile, and it was actually, and I should have known something from this. It was a Delta 88.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It was like I was in college. It was like a mid-1960s version. It was a red with a white top and old big. I bought it from a neighbor for a couple $1,000s. That's all I could afford, and yeah, I should have known.
Yeah, that's great. So other than your own Delta website, what is the website or app that you visit most often every day that you want to make sure you check out?
Well, I'm not big on. I have a hard time just getting past my own email. I'm a sports fan, so I'll check the ESPN site just to see what happened, the scores and whatnot. It's easy, the information, and there's a cool athletic sports app called The Athletic. You just get interesting stories about what's going on That's
Yeah.
my little diversion.
So then with that, Bob, who's your favorite sports team?
Favorite sports team? The University of Georgia Bulldogs.
There you go.
And I know you guys have a big game tomorrow up here, so
Yeah.
we're hoping to play one of you guys in the national championship.
Next question, Michigan or Michigan State for tomorrow, Ed?
No Moss.
We're going for the tie.
I cheer for a really good game.
There you go. Thank you. Person, other than Ambassador Young, who you'd like to have lunch with?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Living or dead?
You pick.
We'll go living.
Called living?
It-
I'm fascinated by Jeff Bezos, how he's almost single-handedly, I mean, he's a character, right? And I've had a chance to meet him, but kind of really spent a couple hours thinking about how he was able to, 20 years, create what arguably is probably the most influential source
For sure.
in not just in business, but in life today.
Yeah.
Just understanding kind of his background as to how that all came about.
So 2 more questions, and then answer the question of someone that's deceased.
Someone's deceased? Oh, that's easy. That's my mom.
Okay. It's hard for me to add any humor after that question now, Steve. We didn't rehearse that one. 2 questions. If you could trade places with someone for one day, who would that be?
I'd like to be Kirby Smart, the coach of Georgia. How's that for a day?
There you go.
It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, so last question. Advice to your 25-year-old self. Any advice that you would think about?
Oh, believe in yourself. Your learning never stops. And it's great to speak to the students. It's great to be at Cornerstone last night and this morning both, to see the kids. That's just the start of your learning journey. And every day, just embrace curiosity, seek out people that look different, that have a different perspective than you. Continue to think about where you're headed. It don't just be kind of go through the pace of life. Life is hard, and it's challenging, and it's hard sometimes to just kind of keep things all together. But realize there's better opportunities for all of us if we keep focused on where those opportunities lie and how you present yourself. I shared with the kids this morning. They asked me if I dreamed of becoming the CEO of an airline. And so when I graduated college, I'd never even stepped foot on an airplane until I was 25 years old. So I had no idea what airlines were even about at that time. So continue to keep a learning mindset through life.
Thanks, Ed. And that's it. That's all. I'll turn over to you, Steve.
Yes, thank you. Well,
Yep.
Ed, you are always a pleasure. You're always welcome back here to the DEC.
I
So
look
thank
forward
you
to
so
coming
much.
back next year if you'll
Yes.
have me. And I see Ambassador Young has already, I know he's had to step out for his flight. Just great for Cornerstone, for the work that Clark and the team are doing there, the kids that are there. Is that you, Clark, over there I'm looking at?
Yes.
There's Clark Durant. We've made a big investment in Cornerstone together with Clark, and we have, they're life changers out there, and they're building the future of our world, and to continue to invest in the youth and bring people up. You ask about diversity. There's no more better place to start with diversity than our young, and to bringing them up right. And thank you for the difference you're making, Clark. And it's great to honor Andy. Andy is a hero. He's an icon. I had the pleasure 2 weeks ago of Andy was honored at a very large, almost 1,000 people, if you can believe, in this post-pandemic world event in Atlanta. And I was one of the 4 speakers he asked to speak on his behalf in terms of his vision and honoring him. And we don't spend enough time thinking about the living legends that are still among us. And just about every living member of the civil rights movement was in that room in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. And it's just humbling to kind of continue to talk to them, to learn from them, to hear their stories, to see the engagement, and how much that we have to continue to improve and get better as a world. So thank you for having me. It's great to be with you. Thank you. Fly Delta a lot. We're ready for it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you to Mark Mendola. Keep doing a good job as treasurer. Find us more money.
Yeah.
Folks, you're about to be served. Enjoy your lunch. Enjoy the networking. If you would just give us the courtesy of letting us get Ed out to his flight, we'd appreciate that. So great seeing everybody. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.